there's only so many illegal maneuvers they can do, right? I could probably count them on my hands.
All right, welcome back to the 7Sage podcast. My name is Bailey. I'm happy to be joined by my trusty co-host today,
Nicole. I'm Nicole.
I'm ZeSean. Hello.
And today we have a really fun topic, perhaps the most searched topic on the LSAT, the most hated, maybe. I don't know. I hated it at first for sure. Conditional reasoning. What feelings or emotions does that bring up for you guys? Did you struggle, or I don't know?
Well, this honestly might be a hot take. I mean, it shouldn't be a hot take, but my hot take is I actually really like conditionals. They're like my favorite part of the exam, which I say it's a hot take because I feel like most people would disagree. But I think it's fun because it's really formulaic. It really reminds you that the LSAT is like a game with rules, and you are just intended to follow the rules. You're not here to try to like outsmart the LSAT writers. We're just following the rules of the game they laid out for us. So it feels super robotic, and that's what I love about it. So I will just stand up here on my soapbox and talk all the positivity I possibly can about conditionals today. Feel free to fight me.
I needed that. I so needed that when I first started studying, because I didn't have a good framework for it. I didn't study like specifically with any sort of, I don't know. I didn't have a good overview of what I was supposed to think about conditionals. And so I was just like, what is this weird thing that seems like, like they're telling me that there's, conditionals in real life, but like this seems like I only need to know it for the LSAT. And it was just hard for me personally to wrap my brain around it, because I was just like, what is sufficient? What is necessary? I kept Googling it and re-Googling it and feeling so stupid every time that it just wasn't like going into my brain. So, I mean, I definitely got past that, but I don't know. How'd you feel about it at first, ZeSean?
Yeah, I hate to say it, I was kind of in Nicole's camp a little bit in that.
Whatever.
2 versus 1.
Well, I kind of came from a STEM background, and so
Me too.
yeah, the conditionals was like, it felt very familiar. It felt like math because it is math. When you study math at its most fundamental level, it's all conditional logic. And but I do think that there's a difference between understanding like conditional reasoning like in its raw form versus applying it to stories and scenarios. And I think that tripped me up.
Right.
Like, I think I knew a lot of the if A then B stuff, but then seeing it in scenarios was an added thing that I had to really learn. Yeah. I mean, I guess I liked them, but it doesn't mean they were easy,
Yeah, totally. And it's super non-intuitive too. I feel like a lot of students will walk through the foundational part of 7Sage, do all the conditional stuff, and kind of like what ZeSean's saying, like it makes sense to you when you're doing the arrows, the diagrams. You're like, yeah, A goes to B, B goes to C, so A goes to C, whatever. But as you're doing it, I bet a lot of our listeners might agree. You're like, okay, when is this actually going to matter? Like, do I need to know that A goes to C? Like, who cares? What do these letters even mean? And it feels a little like disconnected because it takes some time until you get to that portion of the curriculum where you actually see them in action in like the sufficient assumption, etc. must be true questions. So if anybody out there listening is in that boat where you're doing these letters and you're mastering them, but you're like, why should I care? Like, is this worth my time? Eventually, it's going to get to the point in the curriculum where it's absolutely worth your time. It's really going to be helpful that you spent the time learning all those letters. Trust us, it comes in handy in those scenarios.
Right. Yeah. And what we're talking about in the curriculum is, sorry, you can go.
No, yeah, please.
I just wanted to clear it up really quick. In the curriculum, like it's organized by different question types. And so like you don't get quite to the question types that are very conditional reasoning heavy until later on in the LR section. But if you're taking the actual LSAT, like if you are practicing full sections, you're practicing, like you've done a practice test, chances are you've noticed, or you will continue to notice, that there's conditional reasoning all over this test, like lots of different sentences and the answer choices or somewhere in a question stem, even if it's not one of those conditional heavy question types, will have conditional reasoning. So the more that you pick up on it, the more that you realize it is going to matter in the first place. And the more that you kind of just give yourself a nice little way to translate in your own head, what does sufficiency really mean? What does necessity really mean? You're going to keep seeing it all come together. Okay, what were you going to say, ZeSean?
Oh, I was just going to add, like, I think conditionals can be difficult for people who live in the real world because they are at their core like hypotheticals. You walk around the world and things are kind of given, right? The reality is set, but conditional reasoning asks you to entertain a world that maybe doesn't exist in this real life. It gives you conditions, rules. If this is the case, then this would be the case. But that first if might not be the case. And what do you do then? So it can be a lot to wrap your head around, like imagining these hypothetical worlds. But I think if you, I don't know, they can be fun. Maybe to like Nicole's point, that like once you start really immersing yourself in a world with a bunch of rules and you learn the rules of that game, then you can play with those rules. And the LSAT can't throw anything at you that goes against those rules, once you've
Mm-hmm.
mastered them, without your
Right.
alarm bells going off. And I think that's where you want to be, is where in any LR question, you're like, I know these rules. And you see an answer choice that violates those rules, and you say, no way, no way. I know these rules. That violates my rules. I don't know. Yeah.
Honestly, that was so deep and philosophical and so real. Like about the hypothetical, I'd never thought about it like that, and that's actually so true. Because I feel like a lot of people too, if you don't really master the rules and you just try to tackle a question that's conditional heavy, just like by reasoning it out loud or in your head, I guess, like you're like, okay, well, if I were to do this, then, and you don't use the rules, you're just like thinking about it, then it's super difficult to imagine, and I can totally get that. So you kind of have to force yourself to wrap your mind around the rules for it to be more straightforward. I feel like I just said the word rules a lot of times in that one spiel.
That's good. Let's play the game where
No,
if we
yeah.
say it too many times, it doesn't sound like a real word anymore.
Yeah, it
Rules.
lost all of its
Rules.
meaning.
Rules.
Yeah. Rules.
What did you guys do to master your? Sorry to cut you off, but what did you guys do like to master conditionals? Do you guys have any tips for like how you can overcome the barriers of it feeling like super intimidating at first, and then you get a handle on it?
Good question. I was going to segue to something similar. So yeah, for
Period.
me, it was just kind of, see, I wish that I could have asked it to you guys though, but no, I can answer. For me, it was just kind of making sure that first of all, I understood the concepts. Like at first, sufficiency, necessity, they were just too big of fancy words. I'm like, yeah, I know those words in real life, but like, feels like it means something different here. So making sure that I could just understand that something being sufficient means that's enough on its own to guarantee that something else happens. Then for something being necessary, it's just something that absolutely 100% is guaranteed. It has to happen. If A occurs, then B must happen. So, and notice even when I'm doing that, I'm talking about sufficiency in its relation to necessity. And then I'm talking about necessity in its relation to sufficiency. I think part of the fact, like part of the way that it's so hard to wrap your mind around these concepts in the first place is because they're defined in relationship to each other. Like I can't look at a condition on its own and be like, oh yeah, that's sufficient. If they literally just told me like, it's sunny out today, is that sufficient or necessary on its own? I mean, no, it's not either, because for something to be sufficient, we'd also need a necessary. And for something to be necessary, we'd need a sufficient. So I feel like that overall concept kind of helped for me, making sure that I had ways to translate enough versus needed. But then otherwise, it was just like a matter of coming back to examples that I was just like, okay, if I'm in LA, then I'm in California. What does that mean? Well, it doesn't mean that if I'm in California, I'm in LA for sure, right? Like there's other places in California. We don't know that. But if I'm not in California, no way that I can be in LA. And all that I did there was just went from if A, then B does not actually mean that if not A, then not B, but it does mean if not B, then not A. So I don't know. What'd you guys do? Examples, something else?
Yeah, I think that's a great point around like anytime you see the word if going about your daily life, or the phrase only if, or all or none, I think it's great practice to start translating that into your conditional logic. I guess you can't call them equations because there's no equal sign, but what would you call them?
You just call it like, I
Phrase
guess sentences. I don't know. Logic sentences.
Yeah.
Diagram? I don't know.
Like
Diagrams.
diagram.
Yeah. Formulas, whatever they are. I would say start setting up those formulas in your head, write them down, because conditional logic exists everywhere in the world, and sometimes people misuse it. Sometimes people say if when they mean only if, but nonetheless, write it out and play with it. That if someone gives you an if statement, see if they're really giving you a sufficient condition, or rather a necessary condition. A necessary meaning one that you need, a sufficient meaning one that guarantees that outcome. So, yeah, I don't know. I think just kind of be observant, and if you can, like, fall in love with the act of translating everything you encounter into these formulas. I think that can go a long way, because the LSAT is going to present you these LR stimuli with these little stories that are absurd. And 9 times out of 10, they're going to present you with conditional logic and then do some illegal maneuver like confuse sufficient for necessary, or deny a sufficient condition to then deny a necessary, or whatever, or satisfy a necessary to then tease out a sufficient. There's only so many illegal maneuvers they can do, right?
Mhm.
I could probably count them on my hands. So just keep exposing yourself to those. And I promise you that at some point you'll see it coming before they even do it. I don't know if that helps, but yeah.
No, yeah, I totally agree, because a common question I'll get asked is like, well, Nicole, how do I practice? Like, I went through the modules in the curriculum, like I ran out of those little practice questions. Like, what do I do now? And it's like, well, those little practice questions JY put in the curriculum are just sentences he made up. So what's to stop you from just making up a bunch of sentences and translating them, or just opening any website, reading an article, and looking for conditional statements too? So I totally agree, to echo everything both of you said, right? Like, what's to stop you from just writing your own examples? I used to, back in the day, I don't know if the curriculum still has this, there was like a printed piece of paper that had like all the indicators on the left and the group numbers on the right. And it said like, print this out and fold it in half and have your friends quiz you. And I would literally do that. I would just like hand people the paper and be like, say a sentence out loud that has 2 of these words in it or something. And then I'll practice translating. And then it's kind of fun because, I don't know, you get to flex on the other person. Like, I just translated what you said into a formula. So it just, brings people together, I guess. You use it as
I love that flex,
social activity.
Like, I don't know your friends, but my friends would be like, oh, cool. Good flex.
No, yeah, no one would
you
care.
just said something that's totally useless. I'm like, no, but it's useful.
Well,
so,
isn't like being a lawyer just an egotistical journey? So
as
people
exactly.
say, so you just want to invent a flex in your life, even if it's not there.
Yeah.
Good advice. Invent flexes.
Yeah, I was gonna add something of like, I just thought of this while you were talking. It's not related, but
perfect. Go for it.
That's the nature of a podcast, isn't it?
But I promise I was listening. But just one little piece of wisdom to add is like, maybe conditional reasoning is really hard to learn, but it only gets so hard. Like, what you'll be doing 9 times out of 10 is like linking a chain or taking a contrapositive. Like, there really isn't that much more to like even the hardest questions on the LSAT when they involve conditional reasoning. So yeah, just know that once you learn the basics, they really aren't going to throw that much complicated stuff at you. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's good advice. I agree. Yeah. I always just remind people like, there's only so many ways that they could make these questions harder. Like, yes, they have lots of ways to make these questions hard, but they're finite. So the more that you like just get comfortable with chaining conditionals or invoking that contrapositive, amazing. Like, you've figured out everything that they're going to throw at you.
Yeah, honestly, if you do one of just like the hardest 5-star conditional questions, like a must be true or a sufficient assumption must be false, and you're able to get through it, even if you don't get it right on your first attempt, as long as you're able to practice translating all the premises, chaining them up, etc., taking your contrapositives, finding your inferences, if you could do that on one of those crazy 5-star questions that just like, I don't know if you guys know that question about wigs. That's the first example that came to my mind.
Wait, that's so funny. I was just sorry that I freaked out so much. I was just thinking about the next thing I was going to say was, I don't know if we can mention actual LSAT questions, but do the one about wigs and do the one about West Calverton pet stores. You know that one?
No,
ooh,
I know the wig one.
I'll give you that in LR in action then. I'll give you the West Calverton for LR in action. That'll be fun.
Yes, do it. Exactly. So like, if you can walk through one of those questions and at least figure out all the logic and how it works, even if you don't get it right at first, you are equipped to tackle any conditional question. Like, those are the max difficult skills you would possibly need. So very good point. I can think of a couple more, but I don't remember the subjects. There's that one that's like an architecture designer, and they're like designing a doorway in a
Is it
cold
the one
room.
with the Yeah. And it's like, if you creates the effect where, wait, are you talking about the garden one? The garden.
Yeah, it's like, if it's cold, it creates that effect.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's a good one. That's a good one. There's plenty. You got any off the
world's
top of your
oyster.
head, ZeSean?
You two know so many more questions than I do. I guess it's like you've been teaching this test a lot longer than I have. So
It's just
yeah.
eventually they start repeating over and
My
over.
brain
And you just
is-
remember they haunt you.
Yeah, it's all LSAT
Yeah.
brain rot at the end of the day. But yeah,
Yeah. All I
Literally
know
the
now
brain
is
rot.
LSAT. Which
It will come to
honestly,
you.
just LSAT.
for the viewers, like that's not a bad place to be. Where like everything you think of is LSAT,
Right.
and
Right.
not that we're saying you should get there, but like I think it makes the LSAT easier when you start capitulating your thinking to the LSAT.
True.
You know,
Like I know
Yeah.
we're talking conditionals here, but even like flaw, if you start getting in the habit of like when you're reading articles or, you know,
Noticing
listening
flaws.
to certain
Yes.
podcasts and whatnot, if you listen and hear for those flaws, you might be able to spot like an ad hominem, you know, like ZeSean said, a swapping
Right.
sufficiency necessity, even when your friend is like giving you some kind of speech. So yeah,
Mhm.
using
You can
LSAT
be
thinking
careful
in
with
your-
that knowledge though, because you can either become really annoying or you can make the world a better place.
You could be that one
Maybe.
devil's
Yes.
advocate person, which I'm not. I promise. People listening, guys, I'm not that person. It's keep these things in your head. I'm not saying tell your friend like, "Oh, your argument sucks." Just keep track of it.
But
in
just
your
like
head.
think about it. Yeah, track it. And by the way, I was
Yeah.
even thinking during this podcast, like y'all, if you want oh my gosh, what's the word? An assignment right now to get better at conditional reasoning, re-listen to this podcast, rewatch it, and then translate every time that you notice us saying a conditional. For example, I just gave you one. Every time that you notice, you need to translate. So if notice, then translate. I keep
You're
noticing
not a
like
good
every
listener unless you do this exercise.
Oh, there you go.
Unless
Quick,
unless
get rid
is
of
the one that
not
people
on the
hate.
Yeah, people hate not unless. Wait, yeah, which by the way, quick translation, like if you have a sentence that has not A unless B, I think a lot of people get really afraid of the unless, and there's, you know, different steps you can go through to translate just straight up unless sentences, but quick hack, not A unless B. Let's just think about that realistically. What does that mean? If I can't have A unless I have B, then A needs B. A requires B. So if I have A, I must have B. So not A unless B just means if A, then B.
I just memorized this tip. Like I talk about it in class sometime. Like I call it reading straight through. Every time I see a not unless, like a group 4, group 3,
Get rid of
it's
the
just
not.
like
Get rid of the unless.
memorized
Read
in my
straight
head.
through.
Like, get rid of them and go straight through. So whatever is next to not becomes on the left, and whatever was next to unless goes to the right. And it could be other words like it's impossible to swim without fins. Swim
Right.
fins. Right.
Impossible
you just always
without.
know left,
There you go.
right.
Exactly.
Or if it's the
yeah.
opposite order, like without. I was trying to think of another group 3 word, but without is a good one.
Until.
Without. Until
I. Yeah, you do it.
I was gonna say until midnight, I can't eat. I don't know. The first thing that came to my mind, until midnight, I can't eat. So now the can't. So eat on the left, midnight. Eat, midnight. If I
eating,
eat, then
must be midnight.
it's after midnight. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Oh, that's a good point. After midnight. I guess it doesn't have to be right on the dot at midnight.
Oh yeah.
Good.
I don't know. That was just I just pulled that out of the.
No,
thin
you were
air. I probably
right.
could have thought
You
more
were
about it.
right.
I was thinking
It
Cinderella.
was a good
I was
one.
gonna say like until midnight I can't
Ooh,
transform
like
into a princess, but that would have been too much.
You're like, I can't do that. It's not an LSAT podcast.
Yeah,
Amazing.
I suppose.
No, I think that helps a lot. Yeah. And if you're curious about how to translate these sentences overall, group 1 through 4 indicators, it's all in the core curriculum. We've mentioned it a couple times. Group 1 indicators are the ones that are going to lead right into the sufficient. That's like if, any, every. What can I think of more right now?
Wait, when, whenever,
whenever, perfect.
all.
I think, yeah.
This is
that's
literally our
good.
quiz right now. How many of them can we come up with?
Ooh,
That was
a
most
trick
of them.
one. Here's a trick one for group 1. The only. A lot of people get tripped up by that.
The
only.
yes.
Whatever comes after the only is technically the sufficient condition, although the word only is usually implying necessary. It just has to do with grammar.
Let me quiz you guys. I'll come up with something. And this is exactly what all of the listeners can do in their free time. The only solution to I'm not creative enough right now. The only solution to my problem involves math. The only solution to my problem involves math.
Got it. Okay, so if we'll pause right here if you want to
Pause everybody and try.
Yeah, pause and try on your own. And then I'm going to try to do it real quick. If I have a solution to my problem at all, it must be math. Yeah?
Mhm.
If solution
If
then math.
solution, then math. Yeah.
Good.
Or like
Good one.
If
swimming
S
is
then M.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yes.
Perfect.
Nice.
That's how we would really narrow it down.
Yes.
Okay, so then group 2 words, just to kind of finish this list out. Only if, only, then.
Only
It's a
when.
classic. Only when. Any of those group 1
Always.
with an only in front of it. Wait, always is sufficient.
No.
Or,
No, Bailey. Always is a group 2.
Oh, sorry. I was thinking about the grammar wrong. I was thinking about all. Yeah, you're right.
Always
You're
is a
right.
tricky
You're right.
one.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the only. The only is the one
There you
tricky
go.
one. In
Okay,
group
so you
1.
got me
Always.
with the outlier. Yes. Good.
Yeah, like if I say birds always fly, like birds arrow fly. Yeah.
Right. If it's a bird, then it must fly. Nice.
Mm.
Okay, cool. And then, yeah, the group 3 and group 4 is where it gets a little bit trickier. That's what we were talking about before with the unless, until, without. Those are all group 3. With those, if you just see 2 ideas that are kind of separated by, or it has at the beginning of it, one of those words, unless, until, without, you want to be picking either of the ideas. Literally, it doesn't matter which. Just go with the first one if that's easiest for you. Negate it. So change it from positive to negative or negative to positive, and then make that the sufficient. Quick way to remind that is negate sufficient. So if I were to say, ooh, I can't think of one. Somebody give me an unless statement. That's not a not unless.
Unless you finish your dinner, you can't go to bed.
Got it. Okay, so I got finishing dinner. I got, ooh, but can't go to bed. Oh, whatever. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
You gave me a not unless.
No, that wasn't a good bad. Unless you finish dinner, you can play video games. I don't know. Unless you finish dinner, you can play video games. Does that make sense? It's hard to make these up out loud.
It's hard to make them up without an unless. Honestly, we can do the other one. So like, unless you've finished dinner, you can't. Wait, what was it? Let's just say play video games now. We're gonna say can't though, because I feel like it just makes more sense grammatically. Choose one of the 2 ideas, negate it. So I honestly usually negate the negative one. That makes it easier. Okay, so if I am playing video games, then you just put the other idea in your necessary. If I'm playing video games, I must have finished dinner. You could also do that the other way around. You could say, if I haven't finished dinner yet, what do I know? Well, I can't be playing video games.
I'm still trying to think of a good example.
Yeah, one that doesn't have a not. I know. I can't either. We'll come up with one. And then just to wrap it up, the group 4 indicators are the ones where you want to just negate necessary, right? Nicole, do you remember the group 4 indicators? Those ones, I'm not going to remember all of them.
And no. ZeSean too. No, never, impossible. What else? Can't, cannot. I feel there's not as many. I feel like that's most of them.
I confirm these are them.
They're like all the negative words. Yeah. I can't think of another specific, but yeah, no, cannot, never, impossible. What? Somebody think of an example of a sentence that only has a group 4 word. It's hard to think of an example of that. Oh, actually, like no ice cream has chocolate chips.
There you go.
Nobody who studies for the LSAT does poorly.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Yeah.
So no ice. Wait, what was the ice cream one?
No ice cream has chocolate chips.
Oh, okay. I was thinking about that too. Literally, I was like, "There's no way that she said that." Okay. So, anyways,
I'm just making
no
stuff
ice cream
up,
has
man.
chocolate chips.
It's hypothetical.
What do we know about it? If it's ice cream, doesn't have chocolate chips. What do we know about you if you study for the LSAT? You don't do poorly.
You're not going to do poorly. Yeah.
Apparently. Although we know that these things aren't quite true in real life. Wish that they were all true.
Yeah, just the ice cream
Well, I don't know if I wish that about the ice cream.
But entertain the conditional, right? That's maybe a good lesson here is like, even if it doesn't hold up in the real world, like enter into this universe where this is the case.
Exactly. And that's another thing to make sure that you understand. Like on the LSAT, they're not just spitting facts. A lot of the things that especially you see in the LR section, it's just made up about the world. You take it as fact. If it's given to you as a premise, which is supposed to be reason to believe, another claim, like a conclusion, it's just a fact. So they say a totally ridiculous conditional, like if you help somebody in need, then you are going to jail. Cool. Like that sucks. I wouldn't want to live in that world, but it is true about the world. It's kind of how you want to think about it in the confines of the LSAT.
You really have to force yourself to look beyond your preconceived notions. Like yesterday in class, we were doing this one question about like renewable resources. One of the answer choices was like, no renewable resource is infinite or something. And in the chat, people were like, how does that make sense? Like if you're a renewable resource, you're obviously renewable. Like it's just going to keep blah, blah, blah. Like you're always going to have a replacement. And I'm like, guys, just don't worry about it. Like they wrote
Don't even think about it
we're
like
just
that.
gonna take their word. We're just gonna take the word for it that's the law. Like even if it makes no sense to you, and I agree, like a renewable resource is supposed to be renewable. Like whatever they wrote, I'm just gonna work with it. We're gonna translate it, and we're gonna see if it makes sense, whether or not it's actually a true fact or not.
Right.
But I fall into that trap all the time. Like on RC, I tell people all the time, I just assume everything I read in an RC passage is like true about real life. And then I tell people fun facts like, did you know that dolphins, dolphin livers are infected by P. brevis algae? I'm like, I don't know if that's actually true at all.
So
but
specific. Honestly, wait, just really quick side note. I'm pretty sure a lot of the stuff on RC is at least true when they start. Because what they do for RC is they take real articles and then they abridge them, like kind of move them around. I was under the impression that they were just moving around the grammar and like making it harder to read. But I guess they could change some of the facts too, for sure. But I know that for LR, they just totally make it up.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Sorry, what were you going to say? What did you assume?
No, I always assume they're true. I don't know. What are your thoughts, ZeSean?
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say, I have been told by students that they have been using LR stimuli and RC passages to like learn about the world because
in
that
no.
They're spending so much time with this test and maybe their like daily reading is taking a hit. And so like they're just like replacing their like regular information diet with like RC passages, which maybe you shouldn't do. I don't know. A lot of people have told me they've learned a lot of great random things about the world. Who knows?
I have for sure.
It's just like, be careful. We don't know if it's true fully.
Yeah, we don't know. But you know, definitely a lot of content in there.
For sure. For me, though, if you're just looking for content, we have plenty.
Yeah. Well, I never was like that because I don't know if you feel this way, but for me, it's all a blur. Like I get into the mindset of like, I'm looking for the conclusion. I'm looking for the premises.
Right. I'm reading for structure.
Sort of, yeah. I'm reading for structure. And so I'm so systematic that like content I forget immediately. I never remember. Like I couldn't tell you a single RC passage topic or LR stimulus topic right now.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, well I know a lot of them just because of LSAT brain rot. But exactly. Yeah. Like when we walk away from a question in class, for example, and somebody like say that I've literally moved my screen away from the question. Somebody's like, "Wait, was that fact true?" I'm like, what are you even talking about? I honestly wasn't paying that much attention to the content, mostly just the structure, which that also,
Yeah, I don't know. I agree. I think when I was studying, I felt the same way. Now that I teach, I just like don't, I don't know. I guess I have more free brain space to just like think about stuff. So now I'm really immersing these maybe true or maybe false facts.
Okay, so you are thinking about it a lot. That's fun. That's good. Cool. Okay, cool. Well, to wrap up here, I think that let's just kind of recap. Like, what's our advice for somebody who's feeling really daunted by conditionals right now? They're like, oh, this is impossible. I mean, my first thought is it's possible, but how do we make it more possible? What do you guys think?
Things like familiarizing yourself with the indicator words, like this little breakdown we gave you guys, group 1 through 4, memorizing the rules that go with them. Sounds intimidating, but not so crazy, right? Group 1's sufficient, group 2 necessary, group 3 negate sufficient, group 4 negate necessary. And yeah, like we all talked about, making up your own examples, practicing translating stuff, whether that be on the exam or outside in the real world, like anything you read or, consume. And just training yourself to look at the world through the lens of conditionals, I suppose, at least for the months that you're studying.
Agreed. Good wrap up.
Agreed.
Anything we missed?
Ditto.
Perfect. Yay, retweet. Awesome. Okay, well, thank you guys for tuning in. If you want to ask us any questions, you want your question to be featured on a future podcast or a future clip, please send them to us. We got an email, podcast@7sage.com. We also invite you guys to interact on our comment feeds right below this video. Please send us any questions on YouTube and we will get back to you. If we choose your question to go over in a podcast, then we are going to give you a free month alive. So sign up or don't sign up. Cool. Send us questions and sign up.
Please write to us.